Hi friends, and welcome to my weekly stream about the Uno platform. My name is Jérôme Laban. I'm the CTO of the open source project Uno platform, and I spend about an hour every week taking a look at the news about Uno platform and digging into issues or comments that have been made during the past week, so that you know how we develop the Uno platform, and hopefully that you can contribute yourself when encountering issues or improving the platform with us. So for those that are on the stream, welcome, and thank you for joining. I see that Jose is here. Welcome. And just behind me, you can see that we've released a new update of the Uno platform for Figma Preview 3. It adds quite a few updates, and I won't go into all the details because there are quite a few, but many of those changes are quite useful for getting the. It looks like we have an issue with content here. I'm gonna have to report that to our web team. If you're using Figma, you can go and design your applications using Figma, then take the XAML and paste it into your application, and you can have all sorts of integration with Uno extensions, other tooling that we're providing as part of the Uno platform. And when it works, you should be able to see what that we're doing. We have all sorts of documentation available as well, so you can get started from designer side or developer side. And from what I remember from that specific update is that we improved the performance of the tooling itself. So particularly when we have a lot of integration with Figma, and that integration uses a lot of JSON. And that JSON has been improved because we moved to the newer system text JSON framework, which library from Microsoft, which uses all sorts of source generation that makes it all faster. So that's very nice. That's the kind of features and updates that we're making into Uno for Figma. Now let's go take a look at our issues that we have for this week, which is the support for attached properties. And it's an issue that I've been working on for the past few weeks, and trying to get to something that works properly. So just as a reminder, the idea here is to be able to have a button, for instance, and have a resw file, so a resource file that can localize one specific file here, one specific property that is not defined on a button here. So what we were trying to do, so I see Jose is not is still on ARM stuff, so I don't have any update on ARM. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. As I mentioned last time, if you have anything that you can provide us, if there are issues that you're encountering when running with Uno apps on VS for Mac or VS on ARM. So VS Mac is supported, but VS on ARM specifically, let us know, because there may be issues that are coming from the .NET team, and that we need to report as well to get fixed. So try it out and let us know. So going back to what we were doing last time. So we had a few changes, and the interesting thing is that we've made a lot of updates in the source generation area, and those are making generation faster for many kinds of reasons. So we've changed to use the incremental generators framework that the Rosling team has been working on. So for some parts of the generation, so that makes it a lot faster. And less consuming less memory as well. So that means that the work that we've been doing for the past few weeks has been changing a little bit. So if I take a look at here, the code that was written here, it's probably not working because there's that one specific method that is not available. Probably I changed it a bit before. Let's take a look. So let's do a build and see what we have. So as always, I opened the solution using the unit testing the unit testing features here, and it allows me to get to, let me just change one small thing. It's not that. Okay, there we go. I'm opening the solution using the unit test filter. So just to, if you're new to the Uno platform and want to do the kind of development. So what we're doing is when we're opening the solution here, there's a file down here, which is called cross-targeting override.props, and there's a documentation to explain how that works. And basically to be able to open the solution in a mode where only unit tests are going to be used, you basically change this property to net461, which is the one for Uno UI tests. And then we need to open the UI test only solution filter to the SLNF, and it's here. So we get to that point. Now, what I want to do is validate that the Uno source generator is working properly or compiling properly, because there's a few things that were not there yet. Okay, so we can see here that because I rebased on the latest work, some of the features are not available. And this is something that I think was not useful. Is the analyzer suppressions. It looks like something that was added in a previous commit that is not useful, but let's change it anyways. Okay, still not working here. Okay, so we're missing one property. So is attached property? I think we removed that with a member name. Okay, so I think I have that again in my changes. So let's go and pick that one up. I think it was in that commit details. I think I removed it where I shouldn't have. Yeah, is attached property. Okay, so I'm going to be adding back that specific change because we need it. So it will be in not that project. It will be in reflection here. Let's put it here for now. So we made quite a few changes last time, and it was about finding localizable and localizable attached properties. And we were about to go and debug that specific behavior to find out if everything was working. So we had a unit test here, and that unit test is, if I move this a little bit because it's a bit too big. Oh, I think I reported that bug. So it blinks when the window is too large. Okay, so what we're doing is creating the 1xUID and attached property control, which is available here. And what that control does is making a button that has button 2 here. And that button 2 is having a UID that's open videos button. And the resource file here has open videos button, for which the value should be localized value, because we're setting it from the resw file. And the test here is validating that we have, we are setting the right value. So we have button 1, button 2, and I see here that it looks like we tried to do something with button 1, button 2. It looks like button 1 was commented out. So we're going to have to remove the button 1 as well. So button 1, okay. So it was for testing. So let's go and see if we can run that test. And if we are getting something that doesn't work. So just to remind ourselves of the state of the build. Okay, so we're getting there. So we made quite a few changes in the the source generators, and it's particularly important when iterating inside of Uno, so that we're picking up speed to build and improve Uno, because if we're spending too much time waiting on the IDE to build something, is kind of a waste of time. So it kind of scales at the size of the team that we are. See that we had a debugger breakpoint that was set, but we're not going to be using it right now. So it builds, and let's see if we have the test running. It should be failing. So it said one failed, and for some reason it's not there. Okay, there it is. Okay, so it says failed, and the assert was expecting localized value, and it's actually null. Okay, so we're still getting the error that we had right last time. So we're definitely not having what we need, and the code that we changed last time is still not doing what it's supposed to do. So what we had last time is that we were in a build localized properties, and we were trying to find out which localizable attached properties were actually localizable. So let's go and find out what we can find for those. So when we want to debug the generators from inside the Uno solution, we want to open that in the second Visual Studio. So let's do just that. So we're just going to run, we're just going to rebuild the, just make a small change, and we're going to launch again the build so that we get the debugger to show up. So let's take a second Visual Studio instance. Let's go for that one, for instance. So what that will do is that we'll open Visual Studio in a mode where we can debug the generators. And if there's no issues like we had a few weeks ago, we should be breaking an actual source. So let's see if that worked. Opening the file, and it breaks at the right place. Okay, there we go. So the reason it breaks, as a reminder, is that we have the Uno source generator debugger break that's set at a specific location, and it's set in a project, in a unit test project here. So we're forcing the source generation to break at that location specifically. So when we get to the point where we want to debug our code here, let's see, it was at that location. So we're going to open that file at line 3014. Okay. And we're going to try to figure out what happens in there and why we're not having something that works. Okay, so let's let it run. And we should be hitting that breakpoint at some time. Okay, so we have light theme option. So that one is not useful. I don't know where that comes from. Dark theme option. Okay, it looks like we're building Uno at that point, so it's probably not that useful. Let's see if we get another breakpoint that we can get. So if we take a look here, it looks like we built Uno UI test. So not useful here. So we're probably going to break to a specific UID instead of having everything. So the UID that we're looking for is a specific name. So we're going to be breaking for that specific one. Otherwise, we're going to spend way too much time looking at the property that we need. No, so not that. So we're going to be attaching again to the other Visual Studio instance so that we can debug properly. And then this time, let's break onto, so the condition would be that object UID is, and I don't recall the UID that we were looking for. It is open videos button. So we should be breaking on that specific one because there are way too many of those. So last time we were having a bit too much of time spent there, but that's good. Okay, so we're trying to find out which properties we're getting. So this is an enumerator. If we look at the enumerator, it says no results. So that means that for some reason, we're not enumerating the properties properly. Okay, so let's get into our generator. Now our enumerator. Okay, so we're looking for keys that are of the type UID slash something. And I think last time we had the issue of we were trying to find properties or keys that were in a specific format, but it was not working properly because we were looking for strings, but it was too large. So we're saying that that specific resource key dictionary or the specific resource key name here was not good. So what we may want to find is a way to get resource keys in a structured way. And in that context, because we were saying if we have a number of parts in a specific number, then we can get the full UID. But in some cases, we were not getting the right set of parts. So in here we have 6 parts, but because we're using slashes, it doesn't work. So what we may want to do is go and see what we're doing with that resource keys dictionary, resource keys member here, and actually get, structure it a little bit more, so that we don't have to parse fields like this, parse the strings like this. So this is coming from the invocation of the XAML file generator here, and we can find it from that member here, which is built by get resource keys here. And this is one of the changes that we made recently. We're now using additional text instead of reading the files on the disk. This is one of the few things that are very interesting, because we're relying more on what Rosling provides us for caching and to be able to do to make sure that we're not reparsing the resources every time. That's one of the many changes that we made in the generators, so that we actually go faster. It's particularly important when you're in a context of typing, using you're editing your file, your XAML file or any other file, and then you type. And then what may happen is that every time you type a key, then the Roslyn generator run again. And then in the context of our source generators, we were reparsing the resource files every time. That was very expensive. So now it's something that that is a lot better with regards to CPU consumption. So what do we have here? We have keys here, which is supposed to be a set of strings. We're getting the attributes, but that's pretty much what we're doing with it. And it looks like we're probably moving the content of the generators to, we're replacing the key here. Yeah, we're changing the key with dots and slashes to have parts, but that's not good enough. It's not something that works for us. So we're saying UID slash member name. And we're looking for that specific part. But afterwards, we're replacing the dots by slashes, and it makes it for some confusing lookups. So we're gonna have to do this differently, I would guess. Okay, so let's go back to our part here. So we have a set of parts, and we can see here that all the dots have been changed to slashes, which is not good with regards to the lookups that we're trying to do. So, and that is caused by the fact that we're replacing all the slashes to the dots to slashes in the previous call. So that breaks our lookup. And the lookup for this is done through the code that we were looking for before. We're looking at before, sorry. So we're using build localized resource value. It looks like we're changing the key name. It looks like we're searching for the key name. But it's not, okay, so there's something that I'm missing here. So we're getting to the point where we have parts, the key name that has slashes in it, but they're not supposed to be converted that way. So that means that we're changing the resource keys values somewhere so that it fits the path that we're looking at. So if it fits that format that we're having here with the full key. So we probably did it for some reason in the past, but I don't know where that is. So let's try to find where that comes from. So I don't think we're modifying the resource keys here. That probably means that we're modifying the resource keys in another location because we're having dots in the original file. So let's see. We have the resources keys here. We're not modifying the resource keys here, so it has to be modified in there. Ah, there you go. It's here. So we're replacing the dots by slashes. And yeah, that's very intense. So I don't know exactly what that means. So we were modifying those. I would guess that the change that was made here was to match to make this work for some reason, because we were probably having dots somewhere. So let's remove this for now. Let's remove that block and see how far we go with it. So let's stop the compilation here and see what we broke. It's likely we broke something because it's not supposed to be happening. So we have that replace. That is likely not useful either. So let's not replace anything and see if we have a better behavior this time. Okay. So I don't think so. We change only the generator, so we're not going to be hitting the breakpoints inside Uno UI because we're not building it. Or we are. Ah, yes, we are, because that's a dependency. So let's see. So it looks like Uno UI is still building. All right, we're not going to be hitting the breakpoints because we didn't set the break property inside of the MS Build project, so we don't need to do this specific change. Okay, so let's go to our breakpoint, which is supposed to be looks like I removed it somehow. Did I? Okay, no, it's just disabled it. Okay, so it looks like the condition was removed, but that's fine. We're going to be adding it again. Object UID, and we need open videos button. Okay, there we are. Open videos button. So we're in an enumerator, so we have to go to the in to get there. So this time we're not having any key. What's that? That's interesting. Okay, so there's no key. There is no key that's matching. Is it what it means? Let's see. There's no key that matches, so we need to do it again. Probably going to be putting a breakpoint inside the other method. So find localizable something is in another file. Actually, let's do. Okay, so we have resource keys. So in our resource keys, we have, this time we don't have the dots because we removed the replace. Now, there are no keys that are matching, that are starting with, that start with UID/. Okay, so why is that? Oh, okay, so because there's no, we changed the slash by dot. So I don't think that is going to work because it's, we're not inside the same solution. So the hot reload is not going to be taking effect. Let's go break again. Nope, not a second Visual Studio, not useful. Okay, so we're breaking again. Let's go to our, oop. So in resource keys, we should be having one that starts with UID dot. So we should be having at least one. There we are. And in parts, we have one part because we're, I forgot about this one. So we have parts here. So that's interesting because even if we want to split with using dots, it doesn't work anyways because we have, we're going to be having the dots that are in the middle. So it's not going to be useful. So we may have to do some actual parsing of the content to get something useful here, and match using match with the using to get something useful. So what should we do here? Should we do something with regular expressions to make it faster or not? We may just split it in half instead of just splitting with multiple parts. So let's do this differently. Okay. So instead of doing parsing that way, because it doesn't work, we're just going to be taking the first part of the hey Chase, 95% most of the time. Because if you're always typing, you're a robot. So are you a robot or something like that? Because I'm not able to do that kind of thing. Or maybe if you're using GitHub Copilot all the time, maybe at that point that's gonna be something like this. But that's not what I'm doing. Okay, so we want, so we know the key has a dot, so it's a member of a property, and then we want to be finding, we want to find, we want to split at the first. So let's say first dot, it's going to be key index of dot. So that's interesting because I named the first dot index, so it gives me this. And so we know we have a dot in there because we parsed with that. And then we want to have so the property name, and think so the owner name is not useful. Are we using the owner name here? We have so we're expecting 3 parts, but in this case it's not what we're going to have. So the part 0 was the UID name, and UID name we know already because we got it from the first part, so that's fine. So we're going to say that so the rest of the part, so is going to be the using, so it's going to be the property. We're going to be calling it property path, and it's going to be substringing it. So we skip the dot, and we have the property path. And if the property path is starting by using, so this time we can do something like this. So it's probably just a duplicate at this point. We're going to be cleaning it up afterwards. So we want the property to start by using. If it does start by using, then we are splitting the path. So we would be getting probably the last. So it's after the last. So we want the last bracket. So we may want to do it with regular expressions, though if we're using regular expressions, it may be slower. So for now, just using string parsing like this, because we know the exact format of the string is a little bit easier for now. So the property name is going to be the property path and substring again with the last index plus 1. So we're skipping the bracket itself. So that's the property name, and the type name is going to be the property path before it's going to property path which is a substring. We're going to be removing that, so it's a substring of the content without the last index. So it's property path, and probably messing up the indexes here, but that's fine for now. And property path at length, and we don't want the last index there. It's probably messed up. I'm probably missing a -1 somewhere, but that's fine. And so we would have the type name without all the content here, and we don't have the property name at the end. So we have the property name that we can return and the type symbol if it exists, and let's figure out if that works. So I know that we can probably use, so on the newer things, we can use spans of characters that avoids having or creating multiple strings, because that's what we're doing here. So we're allocating strings, and that's costly. So it's probably something that we could do, though I'm not sure if we can do it with the current runtime that we're using, because we're not using, I think it's .NET 6 in that context. So we'll see. Oh, I'm probably not. Yeah. So it's not the right one. And let's go to our parser. So we're in the proper UID. We have the property path, which is the right one. So we have the right key. And what we need is the last bracket index. So the property name, if it's the right one, it is the right one. So that's very nice. The type name is going to be control. Is that the right one? So that's the namespace. That's not the type name. That is where I was mistaken. And we probably gonna have to take a look at the last dot, because the member name is actually so what we're looking at is not correct here. So we're probably gonna have to change that. So it's a dot here, and it's the type dot member name. So what we want is actually all this, and we want to replace the bracket with a dot so that we have the right format. So that's not last bracket index, it's just going to be last dot index. Last dot index +1, so we have the property name, and here we're going to be removing the substring here for the last dot index, and we also want to replace again the last bracket with a dot, so that our type lookup is looking for the right content. So let's try it again. We were almost there. So it's a lot of we have unsafe changes. Oh, that's probably because I changed the slashes at the top. Did I close the Visual Studio instance? It looks like I didn't, but for some reason it's not giving me the instance. Okay. Why is it not? Okay, that's probably, it could be because I had a pop-up opened. Maybe. Let's try again. Sometimes the debugger is doing some things with regards to which instance can be selected, and I wonder if they are asking, querying every Visual Studio instance that's available. There you go. Yeah, it's probably that. There was a pop-up that was saying that I modified the file. It's probably something like this. Okay, so the property path here is not the right one until I hit the breakpoint. Okay, so I get it. I have it this time. So dot index, the type name. So the type name is tooltip service. No, it's not. It's not correct. Why is it? Property path dot length is. Am I getting the right? No, it looks like I'm not. I don't have the right binary, because it's not supposed to do this. Okay, so that happens sometimes. So it could be the build didn't work. That's why. So what did I break? Probably broke something in there. Did I break something? No, it doesn't look like it. So maybe it's a rebuild of the source generator that's needed. Okay, so we're there, and we're just going to be rebuilding this one. So we hit the breakpoint again. So in this particular case, we're not able to use the newer source generation test that we're having right now. or at least not easily, because we're having external dependencies that are not passed as part of the new source generation test that we're having here. It's something that we should be having enabled in the future so that we can actually have a easier debugging loop. That's not what we have right now. It makes it for you have to build again and run around to get something useful. Having two Visual Studios opened and using a unit test, it's actually faster. So something that we may have to take a look at some point to have ResW files. But for other types of tests, it's something that is useful. Okay, so for some reason we're not getting. It's because I didn't change this. Come on. So see, I'm not a robot, so I didn't pick that one up. So it's we're looking at the last dot, not the last bracket. And I changed this before, so let's do this instead. So let's try it again. I'm glad we made those changes because we're not waiting too much on the build, which was, if you remember, if you're 6 months ago, if you were following me, it took a while. Hey Grath, thanks for joining. Okay, so oh, that broke because we went too far. Okay, so let's try again. Let's try it again. So we can see that the changes that I made probably broke something else. So we're gonna have to figure that part out. It looks like we were probably parsing it in a very specific way, and it's not doing that because of the changes from dots to slashes to dots. So we're gonna have to figure why we needed that part before, and kind of make all those two go to the right location. Okay, so let's stop that breakpoint, restore it. Okay, our property name is the right one. The type name is not the right one. Is because we have last dot index. What did we do? Property path using, and we're removing length minus last dot index, which should have been enough. What did I do? That's interesting. So we're using substring for the length. So we're taking the length of the using, and then we're going to the last dot index, which is the length. So 54 minus 46. Oh, that's probably too far. Okay, so that's good. So not that at all. That's way too far. It's not length minus, it's just length. So let's use the last dot index, because previously we didn't have that, so that's going to be enough. Okay, so SOAP3 is asking, can you explain what's the difference between XBind and binding? Someone explained it to me the other day, but I don't remember. So at high level, they're pretty much doing the same thing, which is binding data to your property control properties. But the big difference is the scope of where the data comes from. So with binding, the data comes from the data context property of a control. So if you're, let's say, binding a specific, you do binding my property, it means that the control is trying to search for my property on an instance inside of the data context. Where with XBind, if you don't specify anything, the data context that's used is actually the control itself. So that means that if you're in a user control, it's going to search for my property on user control and not on the data context. So that's the That's the main difference between the two. Now, there are many other differences with regards to how it's implemented. For instance, Xbind is faster because it uses code instead of reflection to do the binding. But there are others, like the fact that binding is one way by default, and Xbind is one time by default. So you may want to have changed that as well. So most of the time you will want to use Xbind because it's faster. It has also function bindings, which is interesting. So you can bind multiple properties and have property change bound to it. So that's quite interesting. It avoids having converters. So you can just write a method and we'll just convert your data back and forth. That's interesting. But it may be cases where binding may still be used. For instance, when you're doing template bindings or things like that, Xbind may not be supported in those contexts. So you may want to use binding in those specific contexts. So where are we? I don't remember. I was explaining, so I don't recall. No. Let's try again. So where are we this time? We should be hitting the breakpoint again. If all goes well, there we go. Okay. I may have to disable one of the breakpoints again, because otherwise it's going to be hitting too much. Restoring the breakpoint again. Okay, so if we go here, we have the type name. Okay, so we're missing one character because it's +1 in here, and we're almost there. If I say type name here, let's say tooltip instead. If I find a type, do we find something? Caught exception, it says tooltip. So Windows UI XAML controls tooltip service tooltip could not be found. Okay, so what could that be? So with the property that we're looking for, we're probably looking for some property that's not the right one. So get types looks for the type name completely. And it may be that the property that we're looking at is not on a type, but it may be a method. So maybe something that we want to look at. So let's just try it again one more time, just to make sure that we're actually looking up the type the right way. Oh, I forgot to put the breakpoint, of course. Let's do it again. This time I'm gonna be enabling the breakpoint. Interesting. Sometimes it's enabled, sometimes it's not. So looks like maybe it's hooking onto the same properties. Okay, so get this one. So I'm not putting conditions here because there are too many members that are hit, and it makes the debugger slow. So that's why I'm putting the condition at the top breakpoint. Okay, so the one that we're looking for is the type is called tooltip service.tooltip. And the problem is that it looks like that tooltip is probably a method or a dependency property. So we're searching for tooltip and not tooltip index. So searching for the type and then a property on tooltip service. Am I doing something wrong here? Yeah, it's a dependency property. So that's that, you know, I'm doing something completely wrong there. I'm not looking at the last type. I don't know why I went there. It's actually, no, it's not. It's at the last. So I was missing something before. So dependency property, I got completely mixed up here. You know, we're looking at the type name. It's really the type name, and the dependency property is the property name here. So I'm parsing it completely wrong. So if you're seeing it, if you see that I'm doing it wrong, just let me know. I mean, it's just during a stream. So we're not looking at the last. We're really looking at the last bracket. So that's messed up. Okay, so last bracket, and the property name is after the last bracket. So because the dot is not useful here. Interestingly, we were looking at after the dot. So NS type name, what did I'm probably missing something here. Because in the resw file, we're going to paste an actual resource string to make sure that we're parsing the right one. Okay, so we want the last type, but you know, we're probably just mixing it up with, I know. Okay, so this thing is just terrible. You know, it's just it's in front. It's always in front. No, it's a nice feature, but if you're doing any kind of addition in that view, that button is just gonna stand in your way every time. So it doesn't work. Anyways, okay, so it really was the last dot, because the format really is something like, it looks like this. But what we want is the fact that we're going to that location. But the problem is that what I did is it did a substring with last dot index, but without taking into account the fact that I had the length of using to take into account. So let's make it a let's make it a const string. Let's put it as a pattern here, so we're using it properly every time. So we are using this. We're starting from the length here, but it's the last dot index, but we want to remove the length of the lengths of the pattern, but maybe there. So because we want less of that pattern. But maybe there's another way. Maybe a regex would have been faster to begin with. Want to reload? Yes, I want to reload. So where am I now? So I don't have the break here. So what we need here is a property. We have it, and we have the type name. Still missing a dot, so we still have the +1 that's causing a trouble. But if we're looking for the tooltip service, that's going to be the right one. So if we change this, we get the type this time, and then we're going to be able to get a candidate. We get the localized value. So this time we're searching for a localized value on the owner type for the tooltip property. And the owner type is a property. And this time we're having a problem here. So in this one, we're having a problem. So that's where we're making assumptions with regards to the way we've written the property. So we know the owner is an attached property, so that's good. And then we're doing a search here for XAML control for the type. So the full key is not the right type. And if we don't replace everything that we did this time, so let's do it that way. This time it's supposed to be matching. Maybe I didn't change it properly. Oh, yeah, I didn't change the key correctly. So the full key is dot here and dot here. So it's matching, and then we're going to be generating the right lookup for the full key. And at this time, we should be having tests that are building, supposedly, but maybe there's something else that we're missing. Okay, so we have some generation that is used like a type. Okay, so we have generated now, so we're gonna be able to go take a look at that generated code now. So let's just fix that last bit that was there, the +1 that was not supposed to be here. And we're going to be taking a look at the generated code, and it looks like it's the wrong one. So I don't know if Visual Studio is going to pick up the last change that we made, but let's go take a look anyways. So if we rebuild this time again, and we let the generator go away with it. We're not going to go into the... actually, we want to, because we wanted to go to the location where everything was called here. So the format that we had here is not the right one. It's supposed to be dot here, dot here. That's what we found out. And we're going to get a generation error. Now I think I remember why we changed the dots by slashes. We're gonna take a look at that quickly at the end. Okay, so it failed because the initializer is not the right one. So it says that XUID and the type is not the right one. So let's go and see if we can get the code for that. So Visual Studio is still not giving us a way to get to the generated file, but double clicking it, that would be a nice improvement, but it's not there yet. We have source generation internal, so it's not there. Let's go and figure out what we wrote here. It probably is because the resource name key is something that is not supposed to be written that way. Let's go and put a breakpoint at that location to see what we're actually generating. Otherwise, we're going to be doing it. It's outside of. Actually, maybe we can try to unload this part. Let's do that first. So let's unload our test project and see if we can, if we reload it, if everything shows up again. Maybe Visual Studio cleans its caches properly with that. So we have dependencies, analyzers, no source generators. Oh, there you go. Just reloading the project makes it work. Okay, so the one we're looking for is nothing. Okay. It's not useful. If I build, maybe. Let's see if I build the project. Maybe Visual Studio will clear its caches and give us something useful. No, still no luck. Okay, so we're gonna go at the generations. We're gonna go at that location to see what we're generating and why we're getting that wrong. Otherwise we can do. Actually, let's do it differently. So we're gonna be forcing the generation to go through our older source generation tooling, which gives us that, or maybe let's use a Roslyn feature. I don't remember this one, so let's search it again. I think it's called Roslyn Source generator, show generated files. I think it's in the cookbook we're going to find this. Disk, I think we're going to find disk. Sometimes there's a property for that. No. Is it called right? Maybe. No, it's not that. Maybe we can search for property. That's a property change, not that we're looking for. Generate and build outputs, not what we need here. Not the one that we need. No, it's not there. Any of you know about this one? I just remember it by name. I use it. I'm not using it that often, so I always forget about the name of that property. Property. Is there a property here? MS build property. Output files. Property. No, it's not there. It's for. We will allow the changing the location of the generated files, but it's not explained here. Maybe we can find it here. Customize output to audio. So there's a blog, probably a blog post that gives us this. Generated code. Reference. Is there a property somewhere we can find? Emit generate. Ah, there you go. Emit compiler generated files. There you go. That's the one that we want to set. Okay, so we're going to set this, and it's going to put the generated files on the disk somewhere. Hello, Twist. So we're going to go to the obj folder. I would guess that it's going to be putting it there. Generated. There you go. Okay, so we have the generated file. I don't think we're going to get it to... Yeah, it's not at the right place, but anyways, that's not a problem. So we're searching for when XUID and attached property. When XUID and attached property, and the location is length 73. Okay. Okay, so we're definitely not generating the right code. So what we're doing here is, so we have the right parsing. So we're searching for that specific property. Not too sure if that's going to work, but that's one of the parts where I wanted to let you know about. So the string that's supposed to be here is formatted to be used by the resource manager, the resource loader, and the resource loader is using / instead of a dot, and that's why it needs to be changed in a specific way. But in that context, I don't know what that's going to happen. So we may have to change something inside of Uno to make it work properly. But this is a problem because it's not supposed to be written that way. So at the location where we're writing this specific piece, we're writing this using build localized resource value, and I'm not too sure where that comes from. So where we're invoking it. So it's not that one. Maybe that one. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so we're oh, I get it now. Okay, so we're basically saying owner type. We're writing the tuple, so that's why it's written that way. Okay, so let's change it. We're gonna say, actually let's use the interpolation instead. So it's candidate dot owner type dot candidate dot property, and we're going to be assigning the value, the localized value, to this. Okay. So that works. So that's going to be changing one part of the problem. It's not going to be changing everything, because we're still having the fact that the property that we changed, the string that we're sending to the resource localization at runtime this time is probably not the right one. Yeah, I know. I know, Dan. You want string builders, but in some cases, not what I want. But we're gonna have to take a look at the way we're doing this. So we're having this. Oh, okay. So we don't need that part. And tooltip service does not contain a definition for tooltip. Okay, so in this case, we know that it's an attached property, so we're probably going to have to use set tooltip instead. So we know it's a property, so it's going to be set and localized value instead. So this way. And so we're at that part. So if we go back to our generator here, and about Dan, about the source generation for that specific building here, I'm just calling a method. So having an object model to get to that point is going to be a bit more verbose in that context. For creating classes, it makes sense. For some smaller patterns, I'm not too sure yet. Oh, I attached the property, but we're gonna have to figure this one out for sure. So it says invalid. Okay, I have to set the dependency, so this is not good enough. So in here we have to have the owner to set the instance to, and I'm not too sure if we have the object definition in that context. So we want to use this, but we're not having it. I think we do have a property here, localized property. Yeah, it has to be in the extended properties. Okay, so it's a bit more difficult than just looking at the property. So we're at a point where we're actually generating we're actually generating something that makes sense. But the problem is that we're trying to do something like this in the properties initializers here, and that line should actually be, it should be here. It should be here, and it should be using that C0 property here, so that we set the tooltip at the right location in a localized way. That means that we're going to have to do a bit more initialization to get there. So that's it. And move forward with a bit too much of string splitting to my taste, but we're getting there. Probably going to be redoing the parsing with regular expressions or something like that to make it easier and more reliable than what we had to do this time. But it looks interesting. So we're getting there, and we're still going to have to make some changes inside the code that is generated. So namely this part, because we're building the localized value here, but this method here is expecting a formatting, a specific formatting that using slashes that we're not going to be able to provide using the current mode. So let's go and try to figure out next time, unless there's a client that needs it, figure out next time where we need to do the parsing and splitting, and see where the resource loader is actually processing the content internally. So there you have it. I hope that was interesting for you. And they will be joining me next week. And until then, happy coding and see you next time. Bye for now.